Futureworld takes place a few years after the events of Westworld, when the Delos Corporation has their high-tech theme park once again open for business. It would be very easy to simply have the robots go on another killing spree, but the sequel instead offers some new ideas. So let's take a look. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I don't know why Tara's smiling as much as she is. It's kind of weirding me out, to be honest. This is a science fiction movie podcast. I am Peter, and that smiling maniac over there that may or may not be a robot is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Yes, so yes, we are still doing our number twos, our second films month, where we are doing the sequel to Westworld today. We're going to look at Futureworld from 1976, which is set a couple of years after the first film, and the park has reopened, despite the fact that 50 plus people were murdered, according to the information in this very movie. That's just not something I'm remembering from last time. They say that in this. But the premise is about a journalist and a reporter, which I realize both those words kind of mean the same thing, but they are different in this context. One's a TV reporter, one's a written word journalist.
Yeah, I think one's like very much supposed to be a Barbara Walters.
Yeah. And they are basically given a free pass to go and check out the park because the Delos Corporation want good PR because people are a little scared to go to the park after 50 people were murdered by their animatronics. Yeah, I wonder why. Anyway, we'll start spoiler free as we always do. That's the basic premise. We'll get into it. I'd never seen this before. Tara, had you seen this before?
I have seen it before.
Okay.
I saw it last year because I went to Comic-Con and I bought the poster, which is hanging at that gray one there. That's the Futureworld poster. I thought the poster was so cool, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to hang it on my wall, I should probably watch the movie.
You should probably see if you hate it. Yeah, for all you know, you could have bought that poster and watched it and realised it was like horrendously bad for like animal cruelty or something, and you'd have felt horrible about it.
It is a really cool poster, though. You can't quite see it, but I guess I could have taken it down just for this. But you can look it up. It's a cool poster.
Yeah. I'd never seen this before. Unlike Westworld, which I'd seen a couple of times before we sat down to watch it again and talk about it. This was my maiden voyage. Peter Fonda's here playing Chuck. He's the journalist, and Blythe Danner is playing Tracy, the reporter, who seemed familiar. And when I looked her up, she's the mum from Meet the Parents.
Yes.
Obviously much older than that, because that's like
She's
turn of the
also
century.
the mother of Gwyneth Paltrow, which is probably why she looks familiar, because she looks a lot like her mom.
It might be that. That was it for the names that I recognised, really. But
Me too.
So,
but there are some big names.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm more of a Henry Fonda man than a Peter Fonda man.
Well, I mean, who isn't?
Easy Rider I thought was just a slog to sit through. I thought that movie was so boring. And like Peter Fonda
It was important for the time it came out. Big independent thing.
Just
Free spirit.
Call me crazy. Just even like a slight plot.
Don't bogart that man.
A slight plot would be lovely. Is all I'm saying. Just I don't need like an in-depth plot.
What do you hate indie movies all of a sudden?
I love indie movies. I love indie movies that have got a story. That aren't just riding bikes for 2 hours and occasionally sitting at a fireplace.
It was of its time.
Yes. I mean, I guess we'll just get into like our general feelings and we'll go from there. Tara, how do you feel about Futureworld?
I'm actually surprised that I like it because I feel like it should be worse than it is. It's definitely not as good as the first one, but I think like some of the discussions that we had were coming back to me when I was watching this from the first movie. It's like, because we kept comparing it to the TV show. And it's like, look at all the other things that the TV show explores because of the sci-fi concept. And I think this one actually does delve into a lot of those concepts.
So, some of it, yeah. There's definitely... I mean, if nothing else with this sequel, you can't argue that it doesn't try and do different things with its premise rather than just, the robots go wild again. Like, it's not that. That's not what happens in this movie. I don't think that's a spoiler.
Yeah,
it's
actually,
just
a lot of it is kind of boring because you're just like,
That's
okay, they're
one
just
of the
going through the
problems.
park and they're investigating things, but like, when does the scary stuff happen? You know?
I think there's a couple of things in this that are objectively better than the first movie, and
Hmm.
that's not to say that I'm super enthusiastic about it as a whole, because I do think there's stretches of it that are really dull, and we'll talk about that when we get into the spoilers. And there's definitely some, problems with it, but quite early on, it took time to introduce its two main characters in the real world before they went to the park. And immediately I was like, oh, I'm quite hopeful for the rest of this now, because my number one complaint about Westworld was that the main characters were barely characters. They were just guys there on a trip.
Just guys on a train.
They were, yeah, like they didn't have really have. Whereas these characters at the start are like, we're investigating something. We've got a purpose. There's a conspiracy.
Yeah, they got backgrounds for sure.
They've
And
got
they know
goals.
each other, so they have a good rapport already from the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
They've got goals. I think that's the big thing, is that there's something that they're trying to achieve, and immediately that's like, oh, okay, I'm actually more into these characters than I ever was the characters in the last movie. Unfortunately, the pacing does take a hit, because once they actually get to the park, there's like a good 10-minute section of just like kind of montaging around the three different worlds, and just like there's nothing really interesting happening. It's just kind of like going for a while. It's like, here's this one guy who's went to a medieval world. He's this other one who's went to Roman world, and there's just nothing interesting happening. It's almost like, it's like, hey, look at how marvelous all these worlds are, but they're not really from like an audience perspective, because they're just sets. They're just they're not like it'd be one thing if these worlds all looked like they were legitimate like production values of movies set in those different things, right? Like if they went, because obviously Futureworld are on like a space station or whatever. It'd be one thing if it went there and then it all of a sudden looked like 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? And I'm picking movies that were already existed at the time rather than new films, because obviously we're dealing with effects of the time.
There's some fun effects though in this, and I think the production value is better than it should be, also, or that you would expect it to be.
Well, I think the fact that they got Peter Fonda in the lead role says they were trying to make it a big movie, even if it feels like it is kind of a tacked on sequel in some ways. They did want to do something. So it does get kind of weird at some points as well, which we'll talk about. So we'll get into all of that stuff once we're talking about spoilers. But the concepts are solid. Like the idea of what they're doing is something that, like we said, we were kind of bringing these ideas up. Certainly when we talked about the first movie, it's definitely something that comes up in the TV show that existed much later. So it seems like the TV show might have even actually have taken some ideas from this one, or alternatively, the ideas are just like, yeah, of course you would do that idea. It's an obvious thing to do with the premise. Right.
Yeah.
So no, not bad. And the two leads had some decent chemistry.
Yeah, they're both really good actors, so it's fun to watch them. And they have, establishes that they have history together, that they are, they like being around each other, and they also they are very different from each other. So they both have, although they kind of have the same goal, they both go into the park with different ideas, and what they get out of it is different.
They have a bit of rivalry as well, because she's not happy to see him at the start of the movie. It's very much like they had a breakup or something, and like, oh, not this asshole, why is he here? And then she's lumped with him for the rest. They're going for a little bit of that Sam and Diane. Obviously, they wouldn't call it that at the time because it's pre-Cheers, but you know what I mean. There's a little bit of that to their chemistry, where there's a bit of a rivalry. But I mean, the chemistry's there. The effects are very hit and miss for me. Like, at one point in the film, there's a robot walking around missing its face, right? And it's just like the mechanical parts, in the hole that's left when you take off one of their faces. And the rest of the head, because obviously this is an actor who's got a prosthetic thing in his face, and it's gone all over his head because it's a bald head, the skin looks really fake. And it really stuck out to me, especially because his hands weren't. Like, if I was doing the effects for this, I'd have covered his hands in the same material so his hands matched it. But I
agree, because his hands look very real and they look very pink, and the rest of him is this flat cream color for skin, and it has zero dimensions. Where his hands, especially there are points where his hands touch his face, and you're like, yeah, just take the mask off.
Yeah, it's
buddy.
there's a disconnect, and it happens as well. Every time you see like an arm or something, there's a disconnect between how real the robots are when it's just a human being playing them, versus when there's like a body part that's a prosthetic, where this looks so much flatter and faker than the real arm. Whereas, I do think it's possible. Maybe it wasn't done as much at this time period yet, but there's definitely examples of like very realistic arms that have got hair on them and stuff that have been made, for movies. Certainly in the years since.
Yeah. I wonder how good it was in the first Westworld, because I don't really remember talking about that. This is still in that period also where like whenever you see blood, it's way too bright, way too red, way too tomato soup colored.
What's funny actually, I thought the opposite. I thought it looked too pale. That tends to be what I think when I see blood in this time period. I would describe it as too pale for blood.
It looks like red paint. It doesn't look like it doesn't have the right kind of viscosity or even like a transparency. But like there's something, there's something. I would say it's too bright. Like it's just too much of a true red color.
I think we're disagreeing how to describe it, because I would say it needs more color, not less.
It looks like the red on your shirt right now to me. That's what the fake blood from this time looks like.
Which, interestingly, this is a 1978 movie, which does have a lot of bad-looking fake blood in it. But it's a fantastic movie, though. And only cool people...
Is that a Dawn of the Dead shirt?
It is a Dawn of the Dead shirt, and only cool people have seen Dawn of the Dead from 1978.
Oh, I've seen Dawn of the Dead from like 2003 or whatever. The Zack Snyder one.
You wound me. You wound me.
I'll work on it. All right, I'll get through. I've seen the first Night of the Living Dead more than once.
What, the black and white original?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll accept
They're
that.
coming to get you, Barbara.
Yes, that's the line. Although I'm not sure you've just not seen Shaun of the Dead and are just quoting that because it's referenced in that movie.
I didn't know what the reference was until I watched Night of the Living Dead, which I've seen once on its own, but I've seen a couple of times with riff tracks.
That's fair. How did the jokes go when it's a movie that's obviously fantastic? Like, did they like make jokes that are positive?
I mean, they make a lot of obvious jokes from the time.
All right, okay.
It's still the same thing, it's still zombies. Cheap zombie joke.
I suppose.
This movie is funny. I like watching riff tracks for movies that I like, and I think they like doing riff tracks for movies that they like.
To bring it back round to Futureworld, the movie, before the opening title sequence, there's a game show. Like, the opening scene is a guy on like a very 70s looking game show winning. He's got a big check that he's been handed, and the guy's like, but not just that, Mitch, or whatever your name is, you have won an all-expense paid trip to Delos World.
Woo!
You can go to Futureworld or Roman. And I love how the presenter goes into like PR mode, where he's literally just like narrating like the footage that's playing of these 3 different worlds that are on offer.
Spa World.
It's like,
which for me, like that sounds like the best one. I mean, obviously, I would want to go to Futureworld. I would want to go to a space simulator.
Yeah.
But Spa World sounds pretty nice too.
Space sounds the most fun to me. I've just always inherently been more excited about spaceships than I have about any period in history. Not that periods in history aren't cool. They can be,
but... Spa World sounds like a place where you just pretend to be an Olympic god and you like lay in a bath and people feed you grapes. Like, that sounds nice.
This is the sort of thing...
And apparently it makes you younger, or at least believe that you're younger.
This is the sort of thing, though, that like if they were making these movies now, they'd probably try and do like, you know how like Warner Bros. When did Space Jam 2, we're going to bring all of our properties in. Like, now it would be like, oh, there's DC World over there, and then over here is Looney Tunes World, and over there is,
It's called Disneyland.
Well, I know theme parks actually, but I'm saying it would be like that, but there's like animatronics of like that are up to the standard of these robots that are interacting with you, and you could go and beat up some Joker goons or something and be a superhero.
Sounds great.
See a bunch of overweight, like middle-aged men with their back grapples, and like, do you have extra sturdy back grapple wire cables to like hold my extreme weight? Even.
Yes, my favorite is always the Spider-Man, the obese Spider-Man one where it's just a ball, but the costume stretched over.
Yeah, I was thinking that that's totally what it would be. Our Game of Thrones world would be there. That'd be your medieval one. You'd have Game of Thrones to fill in medieval world.
Yeah, we'd have dragons.
You'd have big dragons. Yeah.
Was that in one of the seasons of Westworld? Were there dragons in one of them?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I remember Shogun World. I remember.
But there was a medieval one.
I think there was. I don't know if we saw much of it, but it's been a while now since I've watched those first
No,
three
I want to
seasons.
say it's like a season 3 thing.
Yeah.
They must have a dragon. Because at HBO, they wouldn't miss that reference.
Do you think they would just literally like email them and go, "Hey, can you send over one of your dragon CG models so we can just plop it into a scene, please? Thank you."
Yeah, they'll just make it white and pretend that they're building it out of the bathtub, bit by bit.
Oh dear. So yeah. I don't know if there's much more to say about this, and without getting into spoilers, because I feel like because it's a mystery where they're unraveling what's going on, and Delos is up to something. The movie kind of starts with like a whistleblower character coming to Peter Fonda and being like, "Delos, they're doing something," and then he turns up.
Meet me at this place. Yeah.
He turns up. Like, honestly, one of my first critiques that I had mentally for this movie was just how ridiculously quick this guy turned up dead. Like, he phones him and says, "Come and meet me. I've got something about Delos I need to tell you." And he's like, "Yeah, all right, okay, this is my Watergate moment." And he goes to this meeting place, and the guy just stumbles into this public place, falls down, and he's got blood on his back. And I'm like,
tomato soup on his back.
It's like, that was quick. Like, maybe just like build up to like the main character like sort of wondering why he's late or something. Build some suspense out of the moment. Like
yeah.
But it's so quick. That said, though, it still starts off this thing where it's okay, we're setting up this purpose where this guy wants to investigate. We get the cynical reason why Delos want journalists to go there. They want good PR. It made me think of, in a weird way, Jurassic Park. Obviously, we compared Jurassic Park a lot in the first movie because it's the same author. But just in the sense that movie's about bringing experts to sort of write off and say, "Hey, no, this place is legit. It's the real thing. We endorse it," kind of thing. They basically want this PR like turnaround by like, "Oh no, our numbers are okay, but they're not as good as they should be because everyone's scared of being shot. So we want you to write some puff pieces saying how great Delos World is."
Yes.
So
it is a little Jurassic World also, right? Like, we had this park. We had big plans. We were very excited. But then the dinosaurs got loose and ate people, and it was a big mess. It was a huge PR failure, and we probably we're going to shut it down because we shouldn't play God. And then someone's like, "But what about all the money we could make? And let's just build it bigger, and we'll learn from our mistakes. We swear." They kind of do the same thing with this, where the setup is we made it bigger and better and safer.
That's what was missing in this. You know how in Jurassic World they have that big main strip for all the guests, right? And there's like a Starbucks and a Krispy Kreme and all these other like brands. What they should have had in this is like when you go into like Westworld, there's a saloon that says Starbucks, and it looks like a saloon, but when you go in, they serve Starbucks drinks.
That's cute. Yes.
That's what they should have total. I mean, okay, maybe all these brands weren't as open to that sort of idea in this time period.
Hey, even Disneyland has a Starbucks inside of it.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, not Disneyland, but California Adventure across from it has Starbucks.
Honestly,
and of course the downtown Disney does.
I am surprised there's not like 5 in every part of the park, to be honest.
There used to be, and I loved this. They got rid of it, but there was this wagon outside of Big Thunder Mountain that would sell just McDonald's French fries. It was just the McDonald's French fries wagon. You go into Frontierland and you go get your McDonald's French fries and go about your day.
Yeah, McDonald's French fries are overrated.
Disagree.
I'm there for the burger. I don't give a shit about the French fries. Okay.
I've always been a big fan of McDonald's French fries. I can't eat them though because they're not vegan. I don't know why. They put like beef stock in them, but only in America they do that. I don't know why. It doesn't have enough cholesterol, so I guess just make it worse for us.
Yeah, they're missing out on a lot of branding. Actually, one of the things that comes up in the movie is that they're not allowed to take in cameras and take photographs, and that like almost felt really strange to me because I feel like, at least from a modern world perspective, like a big part of these theme parks is that people taking photos and putting them on Twitter and shit is like just free marketing. Like they love that. There's like, look at all the happy memories that everyone's having at our place. You know, they love that stuff.
Yeah, but it is a place that's very seedy. Like you come there to do terrible things. So if you take a picture of someone else doing something bad,
True,
then that
true.
could be used against them. Like look at who this person really is when they have free reign. You know, they murder, they rape.
Which is something the movies, both this and Westworld, do kind of like only kind of touch. Like, obviously the TV show like goes all in that. Like it shows just how horrible some of these people are with some of the things they do.
The contest winner or the game show winner, though, like, I mean, he opens with that. He's just like, I can't wait to screw everything.
Well, he does.
Who are you gonna have sex with when you get in the park?
Yeah, but he I think that's different though, because the show is like people who actually are getting off on hunting people and actually assaulting them. This guy's just like, oh, I'm excited to have sex with a robot. I can't wait.
Yeah,
and then as soon as he gets off the little train, he goes up to the robot host who's like welcoming him. He's like, oh, hey, baby. And she's like, oh, sorry, I'm not a sex robot, but you'll find many to have fun with inside the park.
Yeah, I love how like frank her delivery is too. Like, I'm just here to help you. I'm only a 500 model. We're not designed for lovemaking.
Does that mean she's got like Barbie doll parts? So it's just plastic?
Maybe.
No entry. Please go over there. Anyway, so we should probably say spoilers so we can actually start talking about the plot and everything that goes on in the movie. So we did, we've kind of covered some at the start. I love actually, so after the whole whistleblower thing where the guy shows up dead and that's what sets Peter Fonda off on his thing, is he storms into a meeting at this TV studio where the guy from Delos is saying, and he's explaining the park's reopened, they're doing okay, but they should have more customers. Although they do keep saying that like the price of $1,200 a day is clearly a rich person's price. Like, there's no reason,
That's 70s $1,200 also.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's got to be like $5,000 plus, maybe even more than that in today's money.
Probably.
So he just storms in, but I love this business room, this meeting room, because
the table.
Yeah,
the table's so good.
So it's a big oval table, right, when they're all sitting around it. But the middle of the table rises up and has like, probably about 8 TVs all facing off in the different directions.
For a TV for at least 2 chairs, right?
Yeah. And this is what they're showing their little show reel of Delos World on. And then it goes back down at the end of the scene. And I'm like, for 1976, this is like high-tech shit. Like I
thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty cool design. I don't know if that's a real table or something for like
the movie
made
yeah.
IBM at the time, or if it was like, no, we need to make it look like it's futuristic, so let's put TVs in the middle of this console.
Which is funny from our perspective because it looks and feels so 70s otherwise. Like, yeah, you've got this thing, and you've got obviously the
technology placed into wood.
Yeah.
Wood everything.
That said, though, obviously it feels plausible. You could build this. There's no reason why you can't have this. It's just a mechanism. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I'm into this. Give me it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I was going to take a picture and send it to you. Like, this table is freaking cool.
Yeah. The only difference now would be it would be like probably like a circular LED screen that goes all the way around it, and it would just like display it on each side. Whatever the image is. Yeah,
it would just be like a glass surface, and you can look down or whatever.
Yeah, but no, fun all the same. But yes, so he comes into this meeting, sits down. Tracy's not happy to see him, and it's afterwards where they're talking to her boss, and she's like, "Why is this scumbag here?" And he's like, "Because he wants to go along. He's got a lead that I think he should pursue, and I've agreed to do it. And also, you're my employee. Shut up."
Also, shut up and do what you're told, woman.
I mean, you could read it. I did sort of read it more as, no, she's really pushing her luck here as like talking to her boss this way. So he does just kind of like, I would say this is him getting more just, no, I'm the employer, so shut up.
Yeah, I think it's like maybe she thinks she has more power than she does because she's like the host, the face of the TV that everyone sees. So,
and to be fair, I think her character does come across as quite likable. I think she's got a bit of that Lois Lane charm where she's thinking she's got more power than she does, but when she's trying to use the power she doesn't have, it's a little endearing as opposed to being like, unlikable. You know, at least it comes off that way to me.
I really like her flirting scene that we get in a little bit.
We can talk about that. It's kind of a standalone. There's a scene where because they've been invited to like review the place, they're getting some behind the scenes access, so they're being shown around the control room and whatnot.
The control room that we've been seeing the whole time, anyway.
Yeah, but there's a second secret control room that's further down the basement that they don't know about.
Right.
But they go in, and Peter Fonda's like, "Hey, we need to investigate. Why don't you like befriend one of these guys that work at the computers, and we'll we can use that for access. Like, do you think you can still attract someone? Have you forgotten?" She's like, "Have I forgotten? I'll knock someone." So, and she goes over and tries to flirt with this guy, and she's like, "Hey, it must be lonely working here." And she's like biting her lip, and she's like looking really interested. And
she's kind of hot in that scene. I don't know. For the mom from Meet the Fockers or Meet the Parents or whatever.
Yeah, honestly, if she talked to me like that, she could have whatever she wanted. But this guy just like doesn't even look at her. He just keeps saying no, not really. I'm really lonely. Go away. Like he's just completely blank face to the point where he goes straight
back to work. Yeah. Really, like mid sentence.
She goes back
lady,
over.
I've already told you no.
She goes back over to Peter Fonda and says, "Why don't you try? I don't think he likes women." But watching her get annoyed that it's not working is what makes it entertaining. It's not that she's being ignored or turned down. It's that she was confident she could seduce him and immediately is just being completely... And to be fair, I mean, it depends who it is, I suppose, but I think a lot of normal enough people, even though in theory, like, yes, I would like a random woman to come up and try and seduce me, I think in a real world scenario, part of me would be able to be like, wait,
this isn't the place.
You're a stranger. Why are you like... This is very flattering, but why are you talking to me? Well, it's not even like sitting in like a social place. I'm not even talking about like a bar. Like he's not even sitting like, having a nice day off in the park, right? He's sitting at a computer working. He's at his job.
Yes. Next to other people who are doing the exact same thing. And they are like legit always working. Like they're always talking over the mic. They're always staring at the screen, like looking at what's going on, like the monitors or whatever. They're always monitoring.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's not doing anything.
So we find out quite quickly, though, that these are all robots too. And part of the solution, so that there won't be any more accidents, is to have robots also run the place, which...
As little human error as possible, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't a human error the last time, though, so this feels like a terrible idea.
I don't remember what it was last time. I mean, they said human error, but I couldn't remember.
I don't think it was. I think it was just...
You think it was just a glitch?
I think it was a glitch, and I think it was like, like the people being mean to, like, Yul Brenner's, like, gunslinger. He was kind of out for revenge almost because of the way he was being treated, and that it was always the...
I don't know. I always thought like it was just more cold machine. Now he can't die. So he's just programmed to be the villain, so he just kept being the villain.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's the point, is that he kept trying to hurt people because that's what he's programmed to do. It's just that there was a safety net in place to stop him from actually doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas now he was just, like, running wild. But it spread to all the other robots, though, so...
It's true.
So it wasn't just him. It was definitely something that was changing...
It was just whatever the kill switch was engaged.
Anyway.
Before they couldn't kill.
So yeah, we find out they're all robots, but... And, they come to the park, they agree to work together, they're being introduced to various things. We see like them put on their astronaut outfits, because they actually go into like a space-looking shuttle thing as if it's going to take off. I don't know how they transition them from that to their, set that's more like a space station. Like, I kind of almost wish they went into that a bit more. Like, does it actually feel like you're lifting off in this thing for a bit before they go
we
elsewhere?
get the shot of the people on the monitors who are like they're going through the steps, like, okay, increase vibration so that it feels like they're actually taking off or whatever. And then like, okay, activate zero gravity in like 6 seconds or whatever and stuff. So you hear them like going through the steps.
Which, by the way,
we don't really get to see the process. We just get the narration of what their jobs are.
Are we even going to acknowledge the fact that just turn off gravity button was a was a thing they can just do?
It's the future.
Oh, is it? Okay. And then they're simulating Mars later. They go skiing on Mars at one point. You only see it briefly, but
I thought that scene was cute.
Yeah.
Like, even the snow is red on Mars.
I'm pretty sure it's not actually snow. I'm just gonna.
It should be like it's permafrost, right? That's the only thing on Mars. It's like frozen CO2.
Yeah, yeah. Because snow would be specifically, well, water, basically.
Water.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And last I mean, no, they found ice on the moon. Did they find ice on Mars? Or maybe they did find ice on Mars. I don't know. But it's not in abundance. If we found ice, it was like one little pocket we found. You know, it wasn't.
Well, yeah, there is water like in space. Like comets have water.
Mm.
And I think that's where we get our water from originally. I think.
Anyway, it felt like this movie was like, there's Alps on Mars where you can go ski. And it's not really Mars because they're not actually on Mars, but you know. we're just going to shine a big red light on this snow, and you're going to pretend it's Mars.
Yeah, everything is red on Mars. It's like the Total Recall version of Mars.
I feel like a more suitable thing to do would be like to have like rover races, because that feels like something you would do on Mars. You'd have a rover if you're an astronaut, and you'd be you know.
Although the idea of skiing with a third of the gravity does sound kind of nice too.
Yeah, although I did question though, like, I mean, the fact that they've got turn off the gravity in the space shuttle thing means they probably do. But I was thinking, do you actually have 1/3 of gravity when you're in there skiing though? Because we're not actually on Mars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Futureworld is definitely the most complex of the worlds.
Well, let's be honest, it's the most bullshit. As far as like a real world goes, it's the most bullshit as far as
I don't know.
technology.
There was one where like where an old couple in the spa world drink from a spring water or whatever, and they both hallucinate that they're young and attractive and wearing different clothes.
That's true. That's true. Yes. But yeah, there's this like kind of montage around here where it's just like cutting around, and you see like the Japanese businessman's in the medieval world, I guess he was in, having a sword fight.
A sword. You can bring his katana.
Yeah, it wasn't authentic to the time period. You see, they can't have, you know.
Well, they have special blades, right?
Yeah. Oh, that too. Yeah, of course.
So you don't actually hurt anyone.
Yeah, just in case you accidentally pick a fight with a real person that's not a robot and you don't realize.
Yeah.
So from here it does slow down a little bit. They do a lot of little gimmicky things where they're on the space station, like sort of set, and they're playing chess, and they've like filmed like actors in like red and yellow outfits pretending to be the chess pieces, and it's like when they move a chess piece, they'll just say, you know, knight to whatever, and like they'll actually have a little sword fight on the board, and it's like, I don't know if I like this or hate it. Like I'm of two minds.
I thought it was adorable because they're like, okay, my castle to your knight or whatever, and it's a guy like shooting an arrow off from like a castle wall to the knight, and then the knight just fades away.
I think what gets me about this is, and this is again maybe just like a modern context thing, is that to me this is just like, we're going to take chess but add in little cutscenes that just make it longer, that don't really add it into the game.
I think they wanted to do like a hologram, but they couldn't, so instead they just filmed actors in a dark room on a giant chessboard.
And then superimposed it onto this table in front of the other actors so they could pretend they're playing chess. They also have like a boxing game where they like just have like their hands in these gloves.
I love this so much.
And there's like two robots in this glass box with the boxing gloves just punching each other whenever they're, you know, doing the moves.
Yeah, two robots. Meaning it's just two actors inside trying to be in sync, like Real Steel style. I thought that was. I actually really loved that. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, it was Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but with two humans, basically.
two beefcakes fighting it out.
Oh dear. So yeah, I mean, like I feel like I'm going to gloss over sections here because there are sections where not a lot happens for like 5-10 minutes. There's that. I think that's the problem with the pacing, is that there's a lot of like interstitial stuff between the important beats. Because you know them asking their questions, her trying to flirt with the guy, like that's all entertaining and stuff. And obviously when they eventually go snooping, that's interesting too, because you know they go snooping a couple times. They end up in the old Westworld, which is kind of like derelict now, early on. But so I may not be talking about all these events completely in order, but I would like to talk about the weird dream machine thing that comes up a bit later. but
Okay.
it's they're like, hey, we've got this fancy
It's where
dream
we get
thing.
our cameo.
Well, I actually think technically that. So I'll explain that later. But I think Yul Brynner's character is technically there in a lot of the movie. It's just I think he's supposed to be him anyway, and it's just not him actually playing him because his face is missing. So yeah, there's this machine where like, hey, we put someone in here and we can watch what they're dreaming, and what's her name? Tracy's like, yeah, I'll do it. I could use the footage for the TV piece. That'd be great. And this is actually the night after they've just had sex, right? So they've finally sort of like gotten all cozy with each other.
I guess it's also the night after they've been abducted, which we'll get back into. But that is an important part.
Yeah, I think it's like 2 nights because it's the night after that where they go snooping and meet the maintenance guy.
Okay, yeah,
we'll
go back then.
Yeah, and then it's the next day where they go to the stream machine thing. But so there's a couple of jokes here where Peter Fonda's like, I don't think I'm ready to see what she's dreaming about. And for some reason, she's dreaming of Yul Brynner's robot from the first movie. Like, and I'm like, does she know him? Did she ever see him? Like, is this something?
Yeah, it was in the conference room scene when they were talking about what happened to Delos before, and because she has a reaction to seeing him.
Yeah.
And then I think she has like even another flashback or a dream or hallucination or something where she sees him walking down the hallway and it's just like his eyes are glowing slightly, or like it's like a reflection like a cat has or something in it.
This one little montage of seeing him and that footage at the start of the movie was enough to put this man into her dreams for what I can only describe as weirdly kind of erotic but also really surreal dream stuff.
It's a very bizarre scene. I mean, it has to be if you're going to film a dream, I guess, but also, like, does it have to be in this movie?
Because he comes in and saves her from... Interesting, I suppose, like, she's kind of, like, subconsciously, like realised that she was abducted before because, like, the bad guys in her dream are the guys wearing the red cloaks that were abducting her when she was asleep before. But Yul Brynner, like, shoots them and saves her, and then he, like, puts a red string around her and they dance while this red string's around her, and then they're kissing on the bed, and then she wakes up kind of soon after that. But
before things get too hot, yeah.
But it's like a really weird sequence, and I was like, why is this here other than just to give like as a Yul Brynner scene where he's there like doing his bit?
What it reminded me of? Terminator 2.
Really?
Yeah, where Sarah Connor sees the T-100, whatever it is, Arnold Schwarzenegger coming towards her, and she thinks he's the bad guy, who, by the way, Arnold based his performance on Yul Brynner's performance in Westworld, and all of a sudden, instead of killing her, he saves her by killing all the Delos people.
Okay, sure. That's a bit different. This is a bit different in the sense that it's a dream sequence, so he's not actually turned out to be good. He's just...
I think it's just like it's just a hunch that she has, or subconscious, that is telling her something else. There's something else that she should be afraid of, or whatever. But whereas in Terminator 2, it's like it's actually happening.
I get that part. I get the subconscious, like she kind of knows something else is wrong, and that's like a thing. Actually, since we brought up that conference room scene again where they're watching the TVs, I do actually have something I want to say about that. It's one of my pet peeves. I hate it. I hate it so much. All this footage they're watching of what happened in the park in the first movie is literally just the shots in the first movie, and I'm like, why do you have this footage? Why do you have this footage of Yul Brynner walking down the hallway with the glowing eyes? It's so I hate it when movies and TV do this. It's so fourth wall breaking.
It happens a lot. I feel like it still happens in more modern shows sometimes.
It does sometimes, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What?
I think it's less.
I thought we were past this.
Yeah, I think it's less common.
Why are your security cameras edited so well?
That's the thing that really bugs me, is that it's edited. Like, who's editing this between multiple shots if it's like supposed to be security footage?
Yeah.
So it's a real pet peeve, but I had to mention it. So yeah, the other big thing, of course, we mentioned there is that the first night they go to sleep, like everyone, all the guests get kidnapped. Presumably they're gassed or whatever to keep them asleep, but they're all kidnapped.
Well, yeah, they've said that they're when they in the beginning of the film they said they had 4 priority guests, of which notably the game show guy wasn't one of them. It was like a guy with oil money. It was the guy from like Tokyo, and then there was
the 2 journalists,
the 2 reporters.
Yeah.
So
And they're taking, and they're put into like these sort of MRI looking machines and whatnot, and you're like, okay, so this is setting up stuff for later. But it's like, but they do put them back. They put them back in bed. They put them, back into the world, and she wakes up thinking she had a nightmare. So it's like, oh, something spooky's happened, but they don't really know anything serious has happened yet. But it's the next day where they go snooping around and sneak into like the tunnels and stuff, and eventually. This is so weird actually. They find a big chamber where, and I wasn't sure exactly, because up until this point, like the impression I get is that they're building robots, and we see like them fixing parts of robots that are on tables and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this machine where they kind of like form out of triangles. It's like a really sort of dated effect. It's like they're teleporting in like Star Trek almost. But I think it's meant to just be like a printer that's printing like full robots. But it prints like 3 samurai, and there's a big like chase sequence where they're trying to like attack the 2 journalists, and they're chasing them throughout this whole big maintenance like industrial looking room until our new character, what was his name? Was it Harry? Was it Duffy? Was it
Duffy and Frankie? I think so. I think Duffy was
Duffy.
right.
Okay. So Duffy, played by Arthur Hill, he shows up and like turns them off, and it turns out he's just this nice maintenance guy who invites them for a drink, and he's got a robot that's bald but is missing a face, and I think the implication the entire time that this is Yul Brynner's old robot that he's found, and is sort of turned into his friend who just like hangs out and drinks with him.
You're right. I missed that this time, but I think now that you say that, I think I remember thinking that in the first time I watched this. It's like, oh, is that supposed to be Yul Brynner?
I think it is. Why
do they make him so pale?
It's just that because they have to like cover his head with fake skin so they can put in that robotic bit at the front. So it's like underneath a layer, but you can sort of tell that his head's too thick because of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a dodgy practical effect.
I don't think it's Duffy anymore. Now that you said he was played by Arthur Hill, I think that's a different guy.
Oh, yeah, it's a different guy. Okay, maybe it was Harry. I can't remember his name, but it was the maintenance guy. He like it turns out he knows the guy that died at the start, like the whistleblower. It turns out he worked with him, and it's just as they find that out that the evil head scientist guy, who's kind of like been shown to be the real villain of the movie. Like every time we see him, he's very stern. He doesn't like that there's people snooping around. He's really like strict with his robots, and he's like, "We'll never have another accident. It's fail safe." Like he keeps saying that. But he shows up with some guards, and he's like, "Oh, you went snooping at 3 a.m. We don't appreciate that. We'll escort you back to your room." But that sets up that Peter Fonda wants to come and talk to this guy again and find out, like, who the first guy was, what's going on. And sure enough, this guy, as soon as he finds out his friend is dead from the start of the movie, he's like, "Yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, there's these places that don't let me go. Let's go snooping around some more." So that leads to some more snooping later on. So
I think it's Harry. I looked up IMDb.
Harry, okay. Yeah. The problem is,
I think Duffy is Arthur Hill, I believe, is the guy in charge of Delos.
Yeah, he's like the friendly one, not the evil scientist dude.
Yes.
That's Dr. Schneider. Of course it's Schneider.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't trust the German doctors.
The actor who's playing Harry, he doesn't have a beard in his photo on IMDb, so I had no hope of recognizing him.
Yeah.
He's got a
very full beard in this one.
Yeah, he's got a big beard. So, yeah.
Apparently he was in Death Wish.
Oh, okay. Okay. Makes sense. So
he's a good actor.
The middle of the movie, or from here on, like obviously Peter Fonda goes back to him as soon as he can to like find out what's going on, and they end up doing this whole thing where they kidnap a robot because they need robot eyes to get into this secret room, where big things are going to be revealed. What really bugged me here is that Peter Fonda sneaks away right after the dream bit, right? Because she's in the dream machine, he's looking at the dream, and as soon as they're like, "Oh, we better go wake her up," he sneaks off and goes to the maintenance guy and starts snooping with him, right? Whereas Tracy's still with the people in charge, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know where that sneaky guy's off to again. You know what he's like. He's very suspicious," and she's been all nice to them. What bothered me here is that by the time Peter Fonda and the maintenance guy are ready to use their robot eyes that they've stole to like get into this secret room, we cut to them like going to that door again, and now Tracy's just with them, and I was like, did I miss a scene where they went and got her, or like she went up and met
Oh,
up
I
with
didn't
him.
notice. Yeah.
It was weird. It was like you were just with the bad guys, and now you're suddenly here with that. I don't know. It was like a weird. It was like there was a missing scene or something just to make that transition feel right. But
Yeah.
so yeah. Anyway, I suppose the question is, Tara, did you, and the first time obviously, not so much this time, did you predict what Delos was up to?
I want to say that I predicted why they were scanning them, like why they were being abducted. Yes.
That was the big hint.
I don't know that I predicted the end of, which you haven't said yet, so I'll wait.
Yeah, well, they got into the secret room, and the big reveal is that they are making robots that look like them, that are copies, that are going to replace them in the real world with, and presumably kill the original people. In fact, we see them give.
Well, they say like that's your order.
Yeah, they say
your first directive is to take care of your replacement.
So robot Peter Fonda is tasked with killing real Peter Fonda, and so on. Which actually I think is one of the biggest, weirdest plot holes of this whole movie. Is that the big final act, like big set piece, is that their two main characters are individually chased down by their doppelganger robots, right? And all I could think was, okay, but this is going on in a bit because they're chasing and they're escaping, they're fighting, they're whatever. And I'm like, if you just sent like some red shirts with the bad robot to like kill, like it would be more efficient and it would probably succeed more likely. Instead, they somehow don't run into anyone, no matter how much of like places they run through and like have this chase, especially Peter Fonda, who goes through the whole shuttle area where the spaceship thing is, and I'm like, there's not a single maintenance robot or person like kicking around that's going to see any of this.
Well, even like Arthur Hill like points a gun at Peter Fonda and is just like, let me tell you my master plan or whatever, and just like, don't you want him dead? Like, why wouldn't you just kill him? You have a gun on him right now, and he's got nothing on you. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of glossed over that. Yeah, so after they see all this, they're obviously wanting to immediately leave, and Harry wants to, the maintenance guy, he wants to he's got a route to escape out underground, so he's going to go and do that. He says goodbye to his robot, but our journalists go back to their room, and this really bugged me as well. This is a stupid thing, is that he tries to make he calls the operator. He's staying at the Delos Hotel in Delos World, and says, hey operator, can I make a long distance call to my news reporter man? And I'm like, why do you think they're not monitoring your calls or aren't going to like stop you from doing that? I mean,
why would you go back to your room at all?
I know. So
unless you thought maybe Tracy was there, I don't see any other reason to go back.
But she was with him. They were together already.
Yeah, so like there's zero reason.
Yeah. They go back to pack because their clothes are important to take with them, I guess, even though they're clearly going to be assassinated.
Buy new clothes.
So yeah, that's where Duffy, he's been the nice one. The scientist has been clearly evil the whole time, whereas the other guy's been like presented as like, oh, I'm a nice man. I want the company to do well. I want you to like have free access to everything. But he shows up with his gun, which by the way fires like futuristic explosive lasers or something like that. Like it's not just bullets. There's little explosions that happen every time they fire this little pistol.
Actually, I didn't like it too much because it kind of confused me. If you were like, if you shot at a robot and it made a spark, I thought that would be like a good way to decide. Yeah. Like, so like when someone's shooting at another person and their doppelganger, I don't know if they're shooting, which maybe is the point. I don't know if they're shooting their robot person or not.
Yeah, My bigger problem with this, other than just some of the stupid decisions that are made by the characters that we've mentioned, is that so he's got him at gunpoint and he keeps saying, humans can't be trusted to run the world. And I went, wait, are you a robot? And then obviously after he fights back and they have their struggle, because Tracy jumps out and throws something at him and they have a bit of a struggle.
Pulls out his butterfly knife.
Yeah.
Sticks it in his face and reveals the Delos guy is also a robot.
Yeah, and Peter Fonda, before he does it, he says he was too strong. There's no way he's just a person, and that's why he goes to check, and sure enough, it's a robot. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but like
he was also kind of saying it with the dialogue of like, humans can't be trusted. It's our turn.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was getting a little bit muddy messaging with that because this entire time I was looking at this as, oh, this is evil capitalism. In fact, hell, look at what's going on right now. Hollywood want to use AI instead of people for like half the jobs, and that's why people are striking. Not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons. And I felt like this movie was about the evil corporation of Delos wanting to control everything, and that's why they're getting people in important positions and they're swapping them out with doppelgangers so they control the world, right? That's what they're doing. And the idea that this guy is also just a robot, it made it all, the way he was talking almost made it sound like it was more like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where the robots themselves are taking over the world. And
or like a Stepford Wives situation, yeah.
But I'm not actually sure. Well, a Stepford Wives is the opposite, though. No?
Yeah. You're right. I mean, it is, because it's still humans in charge.
Yeah, it's still the men that are in charge of the wives, yeah. So, I mean, the scientist man still felt like a person, so I guess there's still at least one human, but it doesn't feel like he's the person who's in charge of everything, though. He's not the head of the company.
Do we know that he's a person? Like, we assume so, but like, we can also assume that everybody at Delos is actually a machine. In which case, they just want people to come in and so they could slowly replace them, and then everybody's a machine, but they still want to make money. Because like, if you are robots and you want an uprising, I guess you would have to, like, I don't know, get enough people to come to the park and replace them first.
Let me make this clear. It's not that there's anything wrong with the idea that the robots themselves are trying to take over and it's them themselves that have like done this. That's fine. The problem is that the movie, I don't think, builds up enough, like, in that, because they kind of that plot kind of happens in the show at some point, and it's fine because at that point it feels like, no, we have followed these robot characters, and the fact that they want to like rise up, they want to fight back, is deeply seated in the characters and in the story. Here, when he starts talking about it's just like humans can't be trusted, we're going to take over. It feels out of nowhere. And I felt like the whole movie was about an evil corporation who were like doing this so they could be in control. And I just, it felt like a weird shift to me. Like, and you can make the shift even. I don't even have a problem with making a shift and it turning out, no, there's no humans in charge, it's all robots. I just don't think it does enough with it. If that's what's happening, I don't think the movie makes a big enough deal of the fact that, no, the robots themselves have chosen this and they're going to do this. And part of that problem might be that scientist character who still feels like a human at the end. You know, it feels like he's pissed off like a human would be. And I think it's unclear if it's still human beings that, you know, a couple of greedy 1%ers who want to control the world and they're in charge of everything, or is it just the robots? I don't think it's clear at the end of this film which one it is, and I think that's a problem because I think both ideas are fine, but I think you have to commit to one by the end and sort of like make your mission statement, and I don't think it does.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, because I think you're right that it gets a little bit muddy. Like, if you want to have, if this is like another version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where humans are slowly being replaced by something else, I think that is a cool story, and I think that is a really cool twist. I think also, but if you have it so that no, this is just a greedy corporation that is slowly replacing all of its employees with robots that they don't have to actually pay, that they now have as slave labor basically, and they don't mind murdering people and replacing them with robots strategically so that they can keep getting people to come to the park and make more and more money, and it's just greed motivated. That is also a good sci-fi story, but having both in there is confusing.
Yeah, because even
they don't like the two are kind of at odds with each other.
Yeah, even what's his name, Duffy, you know, the guy who has them at gunpoint, the guy who's been like nice to them and running the place, he keeps saying, oh, we're just replacing people with, you know, people who are still them but have some other things programmed in, like, you know, they'll only do what's best for Delos. It still sounds like they're operating for a higher power. And maybe if you went further, you could maybe say, oh, Delos is actually like an AI who's like the operating system or something. It's not really like, you know, people at the top anymore. But it doesn't give us anything to suggest that.
Isn't that where Westworld goes? I didn't actually finish it, but like, wasn't it like season 4?
Well, I don't know. I never watched season 4, but I don't like. It never. I'm just like proposing that as a potential idea. The movie doesn't give me anything to say that's what's happening. I'm just adding that in as a possible explanation.
It's actually Proteus from Demon Seeds running the whole park.
So I don't think they commit to the idea at the end either way. The idea of replacing people's fine, and that works well enough, but whether or not there's like evil people at the top of the food chain who are doing this to control everything, or this is an AI uprising where they're taking over because they think humans can't be trusted to run things. Those are both interesting, but it needed to pick one and like make it clear that that's what it is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a shame.
I would agree with that, yeah. But still, like, a pretty fun, fascinating, like, sci-fi for a continuation of Westworld, which I think we're both in agreement that was kind of like was a good premise, but not really fully living up to its sci-fi potential.
Yeah, I mean, I think
there's more just like, let's just go to a park where the park attractions come to life. It
didn't do enough with it, and I think at the end of that review, we were both like, you know what? Between Terminator and Jurassic Park, all the good things about this movie were done better in other movies, afterwards, right? Westworld,
and even the first season of Westworld, maybe even the first 2 seasons.
Westworld walked so that Terminator and Jurassic Park could run, and
yes.
that's perfectly fine. That's sometimes how things work, is that you have like a decent idea, and then someone takes it later and turns it into absolute, gold.
Yes,
but.
Agreed.
So anyway, the big final act to this is, you've got Doppelganger Tracy chasing Doppelganger Tracy. It turns out apparently she's quite good at shooting. Her dad taught her to shoot. So they have like a kind of like, they end up in Westworld itself, which is deserted, and they have like a quick draw style moment.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I don't know how everyone ended up with one of these futuristic guns in their hands. Like, it felt like there was one from the one guy that had one, and then all of a sudden, like, both Peters had one, both Tracys had one.
That's a very good point. I definitely did not keep track of where all the guns were coming from.
Yeah, they're just, if all of a sudden, I mean, the robot's fair game, they could have just had them on them, but like, the fact that Peter and Tracy both had them, and I'm saying Peters, I should say Chuck, but you know what I mean. The fact that they both had one is like, wait, okay, you've doubled your guns somehow, and I don't know where you get the second one from, but I think it's quite obvious that the real Tracy wins her fight, right? It's very clear which one goes down. Whereas with Peter Fonda, they have their whole chase sequence, and they end up on the rafters of this, next to the space shuttle thing, and one pushes the other off. And I think the movie is trying to convince you that the robot won. Like, the look in his face, the way it plays it.
It's very cold. It's very unemotional. Yes. But I would say that if Tracy also turned out to be a robot, like, I would be like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I don't know for sure which one survived. Because you get like a top-down view, and like before it was establishing, this Tracy on the left is a robot, this one on the right is the human, and they kind of do a top-down view, but it could have been swapped, like, and I would have been like, okay, I guess that would
be cheap. No, because it was still the one on the right was definitely the one that was left standing. So if they did some trickery there, I would have said bullshit. I would have critiqued that. I'd have said that was unfair.
It was such a dark set, though, so like it was just the trick of the camera angle. It would have been fine.
No, it doesn't matter though. It's very clear. It doesn't matter how dark it is. It's right and left. The right one's real. The left one's not. The left one went down. If they tried to convince me later that the robot Tracy somehow was the winner, I'd have said, no, you're lying to me. You're cheating this for the twist, and they didn't do that.
Okay.
So and my only critique of this, because obviously at the very, very end, because they're leaving the park, they're going past the evil scientist, and they speak the way that they think you'll expect them to, and just as before they get on the train, the injured robot Tracy stumbles out and says, "It's not us." And the scientist looks down at the train, and Peter Fonda just flips him off before he jumps on the train.
He does a double flip off. He gives him the bird, and he does the up yours at the same time. What a cool guy.
And right before they talk to him, actually, there's a moment where he runs into Tracy and he kisses her, but he still looks really cold, which is explained after the fact by him not being sure if she's the real Tracy or not. So he acted cold in case it was the fake Tracy and kissed her. And his whole plan, of course, at this point for both of them was to pretend to be the robot so they could get out and tell the world. My only critique of this is that Peter Fonda looked cold the second he was standing on that rafter looking down at the dead robot. And I'm like, why would you be acting cold right now? No one's around.
And like not out of breath, at least.
Yeah, like, you're still in the heat of the moment. I don't buy that you've just instantly went into character. You're just like, oh no, I'm in character now. I'm robot Peter Fonda because I have to pretend to be.
Both of them should have ended with just the shot of a gun going off, and like you could hear somebody fall or something, and then that way we don't know. We don't know who survived.
I think you can see someone fall. I think you you just don't look back up to the other one. You know, you just see like a dead Peter, because you know it could be either, right? If it's just a body lying in the ground,
Yeah.
you just don't show the other one, and then that would be, because it was a genuine surprise to me when it turned out to be really him. I thought they were going to do a thing where they got out and she's like, oh, it's really me. Oh, that's what, you know, what are we going to do? And then he'd be like, what are you talking about, Tracy? And the other like small critique, it's not as big a deal, but it is kind of like a bit lame for the ending, is that once they're out, we just see like her hang up the phone. He's like, yep, they know everything. They're going to tell the world on TV so everyone will know. Fade to credits. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, they just believe you? Like,
She's Barbara Walters.
There's no convincing of anyone. You don't have to show proof. Like, I don't know. It felt a bit like easy at the end. They make one phone call. It's like, that's it. It's on TV. Like, it's done. Yeah.
A little Invasion of the Body Snatchers that way.
It's a little, the original. Yeah, it's just a little easy and a bit convenient that it just feels like, okay. I thought it would be harder than that, but all right. But I mean, as much as I'm poking holes at some of the things in it, I do. Like I said, I like that it sets up that there's characters with a purpose. That they're definitely better characters than the guys in the first movie. I'll stand by that. Some of the sets they go into are kind of cool. I do appreciate that it's not just the robots go bad again. It's a very different plot. It still fits into the themes, which is good. But it does get kind of muddy, with its ultimate like sci-fi ideas. Like it doesn't really pick one over the other, and it left me feeling like I wasn't sure what it was trying to say between the two of them. Obviously, you can say what it's saying if you pick one yourself and say, okay, if it's this, then it's saying that. If it's the other one, then it's saying this. And they both work, but kind of separate from each other. That said, though, I would lean more towards the evil corporation thing, because the entire film feels like it's about that. I think if you're doing no, robots are uprising because they don't like how they're being treated, I feel like those are themes that weren't present in the film up until the potential of that one speech that he gives.
Yeah, I don't know if it's more of like the thing that the robot says that makes you think, oh, okay, this is like a robot uprising, or like they're taking over. It's not so much like they don't like being treated. It's that humans are going to destroy the world. So we have to take over, because then if they destroy the world, that's illogical.
Yeah, which again, you'd have to go into it more than that. I guess the one thing that is there is that faceless Yul Brynner, does seem sad that
he does.
Harry's leaving, so maybe that's your little hint that which I thought they were setting him up to like come in and save them at some point, and it never happened. Like, I thought the whole point of setting him up is that he was going to come in and use his gunslinger skills to save them the end.
It was just like I don't know, like it almost like he had a romance with Harry.
Yeah,
because I mean, Harry talks about like, enjoying the taste of iron or something.
I don't think he was talking about that model, though. I think he was talking about robot ladies, but yes.
I'm sure he was, but like, he seems to be awfully close to the robots in an intimate way. And I guess that's why he has a robot friend.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying, is like, if they went into this deeper, where okay, they discover a character who treats a robot like a friend, and it actually is a good example of this robot learns to be kind because it's got a kind human who's befriended him and is teaching him what good, right, and wrong is.
Yeah, and it's the most evil robot from the last film.
Right. That could actually be quite a powerful story if they focused on it. But I mean, you don't even see them again after he says goodbye and the robot looks sad. I don't think, like, that's just kind of it. It's over, and like. I guess kind of like the first film, there's a lot of good ideas in this, none of which are completely, like, some are more capitalized on than others, but I would say that all of them don't quite hit their potential. Like, there's some that get about 70% of the way there, and then there's ones like this where this actually could be fantastic if they did go down this path, but they only do like maybe 25% of it. They don't actually do most of the work to make it click. So it's kind of a movie of missed opportunities. It's definitely a more interesting film than I thought it would be, though. Like, I think, I just assumed it'd be a schlocky sequel.
Yeah, I was surprised about that when I watched it last year too.
Yeah. All right, well, any final thoughts and your rating for Futureworld?
Yeah, I had to look up what I rated Westworld the first time, because I think I'm going to give it something kind of close. And I do think that I'm impressed that for a sequel they did have more ideas to go on, and like you said, it's not just a repeat of the first movie, because the first movie maybe was successful enough where like we're greenlighting the sequel, do it again. You know, it kind of reminds me of an older, like one of the Apes sequels from the 70s. We're like, okay, like each one of them has something interesting going on in this. It's not just a repeat, with the exception of maybe the second one. It's kind of a repeat for the first half. But the in any case, I do think that the sci-fi stuff in it is very strong. If, you know, getting its wires crossed a little bit. No pun intended, but
You meant that.
I wish I did. But yeah. So I still will give it a positive rating. I'm going to give it a 6.5, and I'm proud to have the poster on my wall.
Very nice. Yeah, it's almost a meme at this point that I just go a little bit lower than you, but I was thinking 6 as I was watching. You know, by the time we got to the second half and like some of the faults were really kind of, you know, sticking out a bit more, I was like, yeah, this is more of a 6, I think. It's got ideas. It's definitely better than I thought it would be, and it's definitely at least got me thinking about things. But it's flawed, and the execution's a bit all over the place, and you know, it's definitely. But I mean, it was interesting to talk about because there is so much ideas wise that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the final score is 6.25, which I'm saying because I've started doing averages of our scores to say
What's our average for Westworld? Did you do that one yet?
I don't know. Well, I've got it filtered to 2023 because I was going to tell you where it slots in the league, the 2023 Ace League.
Oh, okay.
So Futureworld's right in the middle of the pack, right below Tron and right above Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
That makes sense.
Yeah, with a 6.25. Well, it's actually technically it's tied with Tron, tied with Night of the Comet. So if that sounds like reasonable company that it should be next to,
I think so.
Yeah. For the record, since this is the first time I've ever brought this up because I just started doing it, the top of our league is a tie between Metropolis and District 9, which are both sitting at a 9.5.
Nice.
So that's very nice. And then Invasion of the Body Snatchers with an 8.75. The Martians get an 8.5. 1984's get an 8.25. And then with us just a flat 8 is The Running Man.
When did we watch that?
When did we watch that? That came out mid-February.
I got added to Letterboxd.
The episode came out on the 17th of February, so you know, go a few days back from that, and you're slotted in. More amusing though is the bottom end of the league, which so the bottom movie. Can you guess actually? Can you guess what the
Is it a bonus one we did?
No, I've not rated the bonus ones yet, so I will do those at some point, but I've only done the regular episodes.
It's got to be the second Transformers.
With a 1.25, it is Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Just above that is Age of Extinction with a 3. Just above that is The Last Night with a 3.25, and just above that is Dark of the Moon with a 3.75, and then finally 65 has 4.75. So that's our first non-Transformers at the bottom end.
That's funny.
Oh, that's good stuff. So yeah, I'll if I remember, I might put some sort of visual on the screen to like show this list, but no promises. Maybe not for this episode because I have to like make some graphics for that. But yeah. So yeah. I mean, just the average between our two scores will be like the ace score for any given movie. Maybe I'll do like a special on Patreon or something at some point where once I've got all the numbers, I can talk about the greater ranking.
What did I rate Running Man?
Running Man, you gave that a 7.
That was my instinct.
Yes. I've put in the ratings for everything from this year and last year, and then I started from the start, and I'm up to September 2020. So I've got about a year's worth of episodes. Just over a year's worth of episodes. I still put the ratings in for. Westworld might have been in that time. I don't know. Yeah, I've not done Westworld yet. It's in that unentered period. But there you go. There you go. As of right now, we have 2 films that have got a perfect 10, but it'll be 3, I'm sure. There's definitely a third one that I've not got to yet. So maybe we'll have like a little like Hall of Fame like perfect 10 club where we both give 10s.
You mean like for the whole show?
For the whole show.
But you said you haven't updated everything.
No, I think there's at least one more that I know of that I've not done yet. But these are movies where we both gave them a 10, so they have a perfect 10 average.
Well, it's gotta be Terminator.
Correct?
Alien.
Correct?
Aliens?
I've not got to that yet.
Or Terminator 2.
That depends on what you rate that. No, Terminator 2 doesn't. The third one that I know will be 2001. I've not got to that one yet.
Okay.
Aliens could be. I don't remember what you rated that though. You might have given that like a 9.5 just to skew it because you're evil. I think you might have done.
I might have. Maybe it could have just been because I like Alien just a little bit more.
Very possibly. Also,
much like Terminator, I like the first one just slightly more, so I put the second one just a half point down, which maybe is unfair. Maybe they are both 10s.
Maybe we'll do like an easy little quick special once I've finished this, and I can reveal like what the top batch of movies are and what the bottom batch of movies are, just so there's some context for going forward. It's no homework for you. I could tell you what the lowest ones are other than those Transformers just now, but I've not finished yet, so there's probably some other stinkers to go in.
What was the one with the butthole aliens?
That was Captive State. That is the 4th lowest rated currently out of all the ones I've done, with a 2.75.
That was a bad movie.
Yes. Yes, but there's 2 films lower than that, but above Revenge. Revenge of the Fallen is the lowest of the entire show. At least, I don't think there's anything.
What about Terminator 3?
Oh, that's a bit higher up. That's got a 3.75. That's about 10 spots up from the bottom.
I don't know what the worst ones would be.
Well, one of them is a Terminator movie.
Oh, is it Genesis?
Genesis is the 3rd lowest.
That's a terrible movie.
With a 2.5.
It was actually on when my brother was visiting a couple weeks ago, and I went and saw it, and both my dad and my brother were watching it. I was like, I can't believe you're watching this crap. And they kept asking, like, what's happening here? I'm like, I literally just watched it and analyzed it, and I still am not able to explain like why this makes sense.
Well, that was October 2019, so I don't know if that counts as just watched it and analysed it, but
it's close enough. I don't know how time works anymore, so. Well,
since you know what the third and the lowest is, can you guess what that movie in between those two is? So the lowest of all time, again, I've not done them all yet, but out of the ones I've done, the lowest of all time is Revenge of the Fallen. The third lowest is Terminator Genesis. What's sandwiched between those two? With a flat 2 out of 10.
Boy, we hated it, huh?
And for
was it one that you gave a 1 to and I gave a 3 to?
It was.
No, I don't know. What is it?
Alien versus Predator Requiem.
Requiem. Okay.
Yeah. That's not a surprise. Not a surprise. But yeah, so, yes. Yeah, well, once I've got this done, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more, like a little quick special or something. But I've actually enlisted help from the audience to do it for Screams, because there's so many Screams episodes to check. So, but
yeah,
I'll have a nice record eventually.
You guys been doing that for like 8 years or something?
That's about right, actually. 2015. Yeah, that first year and a half though was pretty shit. Like, I would say the good episodes start probably sort of late 2016, early 2017 is where it really kind of found its groove.
Just gotta do some revisits for some films.
We do. But anywho, that was a little tangent at the end, but that has been our discussion on Futureworld. It wasn't actually a slightly shorter discussion, it was only about an hour, so an extra little 10 minutes on ace statistics. Not a bad time for it, but that'll do us for the show. So yeah, 6.25 is what it ended up with. Let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments. And I keep meaning to tell people to like the YouTube video before we get to spoilers, just because, you know, like, if you tell them to do it in the middle, like, like, hey, do it like on its own, like it'll sink in better, and I keep forgetting. But like the video. Also,
I always like our videos.
support Well, I'm glad you do, but I mean, the audience should be doing it. Yeah, so you can support all the content and get bonus stuff over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Every month you get a bonus episode at the $3 tier. The next one, so Tara is like away for, well, not away necessarily, but she's off from recording for almost a week. It actually doesn't affect this. The timing of the week actually works out that we should have the next episode up as normal, which for the record will be Empire Strikes Back to close off second movie month.
What a stinker.
I might say that. We'll find out next week, won't we?
You do hate Star Wars.
But yeah, but the bonus episode may be a little bit late on Patreon for people who are on Patreon, but it's coming, and it's a sequel to tie into all the twos. We'll be doing Mimic 2 on Patreon, so
Electric Boogaloo.
Look forward to that. But at the $5 tier you get the Ace Meltdown, which is more of a casual just movie and other stuff catch-up show that me and Tara do every month. In fact, the new one, by the time this goes out, the newest one will have just went out on Patreon, and we talk about what movies we've been watching just casually. We even talk a little bit about video games and anything else. TV shows got a bit of a talk this time, and we used to do quizzes at the start of the show, like sci-fi movie quizzes. We sort of switched it up this past episode, and we did the sort of discussion thing where we tried to pick like the sci-fi Mount Rushmores of various sci-fi topics, and we'll be doing that at the start of Meltdown for a few months at least, while we can still think of topics. But there was a nice little sort of conversation like spark to get us debating things. So if that sounds like fun, it was like a 2 hour plus episode. If more of us yammering at each other for 2 hours sounds like a good time, you can get that on Patreon. So anyway, that's the show. That's the Atomic Cinema Experiment.
And get to know us a little bit better.
Maybe a bit too much. I'll tell you some uncomfortable truths about myself, everyone. You'll know too much. All my deep dark secrets.
Yeah, that's the paid content.
Male Fuzz After Dark. We do swear on those shows actually, because it's not good on YouTube publicly, so we can just drop F-bombs as much as we like. So
we are very salty people.
It does happen a little bit. But that is the show. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you for joining us for Futureworld. We'll see you next time for a much bigger number 2. Nice. This is the Empire Strikes Back. We'll see you then. Keep watching the science fiction movies. A computer. Add salsa.